This is how you measure the worth of a man. This is how you measure a man. It's not by how much money he makes. It's not by how hot his wife is. It's not even by how big his dick is. This is the only metric that matters. You're listening to the Be Better podcast. I'm Harrison Orr, and after coaching 500 men, guys who've run businesses, who've been successful in their career, in finances, the one thing that doesn't translate to having a successful marriage and being a man who is confident and respected is how much truth he is willing to face, how grounded he is as a man. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And this quote comes from David Dieter, his book, The Way of the Superior Man. And he says, you can measure a man by how much truth he is willing to face. When we look at our business, it's very easy to see where things are working, where things are not working so well, because it's numbers, right? It's logic. And in that realm where men perform, that's where men have been rewarded, right? Their entire lives. Men are rewarded for their output. They're valued on how much you can contribute to society, to the business. Like, what is the thing that you have achieved? How hard can you work? And what becomes extremely confusing for a lot of high-performing men is that success doesn't translate into home life, doesn't translate into their marriage. And we then think that maybe it's not enough. Maybe I need to make more money. I need to have a bigger house. I need to have more resources. I need to have more of all these things. But that is neglecting an element of truth, that it's not what you're already providing. It's a lack of other elements that are not being met. Like, provision as a man is not purely financial. Like, yes, finances matter. And if you're in that category, if you're still in survival mode, you're still building up your business, building up your income to cover the bills, to cover basic requirements for life, your food, your rent, your expenses there, then cool. Fix that stuff first, because as long as you're in survival mode, then this won't land as hard as it will for the men who have won on paper, who have built that business, who have got all the things by general societal standards. You should feel like a success, right? You've got the house, you've got the business, you've got the wife, you've got all these things, but you still feel this gnawing gap. Like, you still feel distant in your relationship. You still feel confused as to how to handle these emotions at home. And maybe you're not confused. Maybe there's the distance there. There's the shutdown. There's the people please. There's the apologizing. And that just feels like, well, that's what a good man does. He doesn't rock the boat. He doesn't argue. He doesn't cause conflict. He doesn't become an inconvenience, right? He provides, he works hard, he shuts up, and that's his role. But you're missing a vital and brutal truth. And that is that currency that you trade at work is not the currency that's accepted at home. And that's what creates the gap between the man that you think you are and the man that your wife and your kids actually experience. So as a high performer, as a business owner, you are excellent at managing the external metrics, like narrating that strong self-image, the work ethic, the discipline, and justifying why everything makes sense. Like, it's all logic. That's your realm of expertise, what you've been rewarded for your entire life. But marriage, relationships at home, expose the reactivity, expose the indecision, expose the emotional avoidance or the just lack of presence, because it's a different currency. And so avoiding this truth of why that home life isn't as successful and you don't feel the way that you want isn't from weakness. It's because it threatens your identity, right? It threatens the identity of who you believe you are. And they are a beautiful reflection and mirror of where and how that may not exactly be true, right? And this doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't make you a bad man, doesn't make you a failure. Just like you learnt all the things that made you successful in business, it's another skill set that can be trained and learned. Now, when we look at this, is where a lot of men get stuck, right? They try to apply the same principles in from business into their home life, like the problem solving, the quick execution. Okay, here's a problem. Here's an emotional problem for my wife. What's the problem? Here's a solution. Take action. Move on. That is a surefire way, as I'm sure you've experienced, to make her either escalate and say things like, "You're not listening. You don't understand," and then maybe storm off in a huff, or just get even more escalated, or will completely shut down, often using the same fucking things like, "You're not even listening, don't know why I bother." And it's because she's not looking for a solution. And I know that hurts a lot of men's logical brains. Like, you have a problem, I have a solution. What's the fucking problem here? Like, what's the issue? Not all of female problems need a male solution. They will solve themselves most of the time by just being expressed. And so this level of emotional containment, emotional capacity, right? Both capacity in the sense of your own emotions, right? Being able to stay present, stay grounded, not be reactive. When she's bringing an emotion to you, not feel like, you have to solve it out of, your discomfort for her experiencing this emotion. And then also the emotional capacity to hold her emotions. And I want to distinguish the difference between holding her emotions and taking on her emotions, right? They are not the same thing. Holding space for her emotions simply is, I know that's a vague term that a lot of people use, like, "Oh, just hold space." Like, what the fuck does that mean? Holding space simply means staying grounded and present in yourself, right? It's allowing her, whether it's your wife or your kids, to have their tantrum, to have their emotion, to have whatever's going on in their space, and simply sit there and hold your state, right? So when we say hold space, I, at least anyway, mean to hold your state, right? Stay composed, not checking out, not going into fight or flight, not going into freeze mode, not going into problem solving mode or explanatory mode, whatever is, your default of handling the situations. But sit there, stay present, allow them to fully express whatever's going on in their space. And as you get more attuned to your wife's needs, to your kids' needs even, you'll then get better at listening for, what do they actually need from me in this? Do they need me to just shut up and listen right now? And then at the end, like, yeah, that's really hard. I can see why you feel that way. And that's basically the end of it, right? You don't need to go any further. Sometimes you can ask, "Babe, would you like a solution to this, or do you just want me to listen?" Right? The 3 H's. Do you want to be hugged? Do you want to be helped? Or do you want to be heard? When in doubt, and while you're still getting more attuned to her emotions and your emotional capacity in this space, getting feedback can help not fuck things up and start to gain that, to see those questions and those situations as training grounds, right? Then you can start to just use your brain and your intellect for pattern recognition to feel into what she needs in that moment. But getting to this space requires the acknowledgement of the truth that there is work to do. That the success that you've built in your business or your finances or your career doesn't translate to success at home. Just because you have a fat bank account doesn't mean your wife is going to desire you. Just because you've got the house, you've got the cars, doesn't mean she's going to be attracted to you forever. Just because you've got a fit body doesn't mean that she's going to be melting over you every time you walk in the door and take your shirt off. I tried that one, and I promise you it doesn't work. Sure, it's fun when you get into the bedroom and get into the moment, but there's so much before that builds that intimacy, builds that connection, builds the desire, the attraction, the lust, all the things that actually have basically nothing to do with your body. And I know that one sucks, because as men, we like to look to, what's the hard route? Like, what can I do that's hard, that's challenging, that's going to prove I've got this, right? That's one of the things why a great body and a business or money gives men such status, because when you've got those things, you can't fake it, right? Assuming that you built the business, you've got the money, like you just didn't win lotto or just weren't inherited to it. Like those you can kind of bluff, but a body and things like that cannot be faked. right? There is one way to get that and one way fucking only. Consistency in doing the right things. Just a quick announcement, guys. If you are a high-performing father or a successful business owner who's built the life you said you always wanted, and even a life most men would envy, but deep down you feel like something's off. Your drive and fire is just your marriage just feels stale, your energy's just not what it used to be, or maybe you're still stuck in the nice guy syndrome, but you're ready to lead with real presence and confidence again. Well, that's exactly what I help men like you to do. So if you're ready to take action and want to know if my coaching is right for you, either scroll down to the show notes or go to my Instagram page, The Elite Father, and click on the link tree to apply. You've built a business success. Now let's build success where it really matters. Now, back to the show. And so the first truth that most high-performing men struggle to own, to see, is that effort does not equal leadership. Doing more chores, saying yes more, trying harder, being easygoing, like it's over apologizing, trying not to rock the boat or keep the peace. More of that effort does not mean leadership. And you might feel mature by, okay, it's not worth the argument, it's not worth the fight. I'm just going to, I'll take the hit. I'll, push my ego down and take one for the team by not saying this thing, by not being an inconvenience. But that's often what creates the loss of polarity and respect. And leadership is not effort, right? The leadership is not here, just let me do everything. It's being able to stay grounded and present and provide direction under that emotional presence, which is where a lot of nice guys, not just nice guys, a lot of high-performing men have to learn, have to train. Like when we can train our body to not go into fight or flight mode when our wife is emotional, when our kids are having a tantrum, and lead by example by staying calm, by staying present, by navigating that situation is what creates trust or creates like the actual leadership that makes them want to follow you, naturally follow you, because you're congruent with who you say you are and your actions. And that's the big gap for a lot of men. It's like, oh, I see myself as this type of person, but then how my marriage receives me, how I show up under emotional pressure, how my kids respond to me, they challenge that identity. Because if I was the man that I believe I am, my kids wouldn't talk to me that way. I wouldn't have that level of intimacy or that distance in my relationship, and I wouldn't be feeling like this in my own home. That's a hard truth to swallow, but a very necessary one if you want to do something about it. And all of this boils down to, it's my fault. My fault, my responsibility. And not my fault and my responsibility from a self-deprecating type energy, but from okay, cool, it's my fault that I show up this way. It's my fault that I do this. Amazing. That means I can do something about it. That leads me into truth number 2. Your reactions teach people how to treat you. When you have people that walk all over you, that disrespect you, that don't listen to you, that treat you in any way other than the way that you would like to be treated, there has been some time in your interaction with this person that they have learned that is acceptable. Maybe you shut down, you get defensive, you avoid deciding, you defer the decision or the direction just to keep the peace or because you're afraid of getting it wrong. And that teaches them how to treat you. It teaches them that you don't feel confident making a decision, that as soon as you don't get your way, you get angry and try to control the situation through rage and anger and that dominance type energy, which is how most men that don't know how to communicate or regulate themselves feel like they have to get their way. And to be honest, that's what I used to think being alpha or being masculine was, right? Using that brute force to get his way. He was the loudest man in the room. He was the most forceful man in the room. That's not masculinity. That's not true power. That's immature masculinity, maybe. That's boy psychology, thinking that he has to use that to get his way. But look at the men who you truly respect when there is chaos, when there's emotional turmoil and everyone else is getting stressed out, losing their mind. How does he compose himself? Probably slows down. Probably takes an extra minute to decide how he wants to handle this, what he wants to say, what needs to happen next. And then that teaches other people that he can be relied on in times of stress, that he can make a decision under pressure, that he can stay calm and grounded and not lose his mind like everybody else. Like he's not reactive to the energy and chaos of everybody else in the room. He is the one that then regulates everyone else because of that because of that consistency and that energy that he holds in those situations. Another point on how people treat you. It also comes from a lack of congruency, right? Like if we say we're going to do something and we don't do it, not only does it teach our subconscious mind that we can't follow through and we don't believe what we say we're going to do, it also then teaches other people that standard too. So if there's people in your life that aren't treating you the way that you would like them to, look at the standards that you hold for yourself, because that's teaching them, and then how you allow them to treat you. Like a grounded, confident man, if someone breached that boundary, breached that standard of how he liked to be treated by others, would simply draw a line and hold that boundary. Thank you, but I won't allow you to speak to me like that. That's not on. And a crystal clear, calm, but enforced, firm boundary. I can see you're emotional right now, but I won't tolerate that disrespect. It's crystal, it's clear, and must be willing to hold that. That then teaches that person that, oh, he's not to be fucked with. You can fuck around in the lines before that. You can like have your space, but if you treat him with disrespect or show up in a way that doesn't align with those standards, then he won't allow it. Like we've all heard the concept, you are the average of the top 5 people you spend your time with. And you allow the standards of those people. If they have standards that you don't believe are serving you to your highest degree, you are still allowing that person in your life. You're allowing that standard in your life. So do something about it. The third truth, you're not avoiding conflict. You're avoiding self-exposure. See, most men are not afraid of arguments, right? They're not afraid of having a back and forth of differing opinions. Most men are afraid of actually being seen as wrong, which means that they are incompetent. They're being seen as unsure, or that means that they've lost the high ground. Like they no longer have an advantage. They're no longer a good man. And if they're not any of those things, it means that they are worthless, that they are unlovable. You go down that rabbit hole or that spiral of extended labels and worth. So instead of risking that exposure, they choose comfort. They avoid that conflict. And you'll know that this comes up, right? When you have that inkling to say something of maybe you're at the supermarket or somewhere and someone cuts in front of you, or your wife or your kids are talking to you and you want to say something, you want to hold that boundary that you've just set, you want to speak up from a calm, congruent standpoint. But maybe that story comes up. It's not worth it. What's the point? I don't have anywhere to be. I don't mind waiting an extra couple of minutes. It's all these justifications that come up because they're afraid of something. And so this is not to shame people, but it's just to bring that level of truth of like, okay, if that's where you're at, cool. Fucking own it. Own it. Cool. I should have spoken up. I should have said something. I should have enforced that boundary, but I let it slide. I didn't speak up. When we can face these truths, instead of allowing the story of why we didn't or any other justification to kind of run its course, when we can see this truth for what it is, it then puts us in the powerful position which allows us to own it and take action on it, to change it. If that's a standard that we're not willing to tolerate, if that doesn't align with the man that you want to be, that the man that is capable of having the marriage that you want to have, that is capable of being the father that you want to be, that is capable of whatever it is in life that you're striving to achieve, then it's something that we need to address. Because we don't achieve goals because we want the goals. We achieve them based on our habits and what we do most. And that starts with who we become. Like you have to become the person that is capable of achieving that thing, right? You wouldn't have the financial and the business success if you weren't a man that is capable of making that level of decision, that is capable of leading that level of team, that is capable of like all the traits and things that you needed to get to where you are. And so if you're in a position right now where things are good, but it's not as good as it could be, you know that there's a gap between who you are and who you want to be, there's some truth that needs to be faced. But avoiding that truth is going to lead to predictability, predictability that you're going to keep running the same script, the same life over and over again until you face it. It's going to lead to emotional flatness at home. Like maybe things aren't bad. Maybe you don't have fights or arguments, but it's also not deeply connected and intimate either. You're just roommates. There's a loss of tension, not, and don't mean tension in the bad sort, but tension is the push and pull, the polarity in the relationship, which creates the spark and the flirtatiousness and the energy and the fun, loving type energy. And importantly, it's not because you're a failure of a man. It's not because there's no love there. It's because there's truths that you have not faced, and it's eroding your ability to lead at home. It's eroding your ability to grow at home. And that's what destroys most marriages. Not because someone cheats or because they just simply fall apart, because the man is not willing to see how he is showing up and the effects that it's having on the marriage. That's why a lot of therapy, a lot of counseling doesn't work for the guys that I speak to, the guys that I work with, because there's nothing wrong with the communication. There's nothing wrong with the marriage itself. It's the truths he is not facing, therefore owning, therefore doing something about. And I say that to empower you that there is so much that you can face and own and change in yourself without your wife needing to do a single thing. And it will have such a massive impact on the relationship. Like, think about if you were just congruent with what you said you would do. If you provided direction in the relationship, if you made the decision instead of defaulting to, I don't care, whatever you want, up to you. If you had the emotional capacity to hold your emotions and hold hers without having to fix them or, then go into arguments and things like that. If you were able to navigate conflict and learn how to fight, so to speak, right? How to have disagreements and grow from it. These are all things that you can do on your own. And then you bring those learnings and that growth to the relationship. What would change? Like, how much more connected do you think you'd feel? How much more grounded and confident in yourself do you think you would feel? And then how would they respond, being like your kids and your wife? And this simply boils down to being able to own your reactions and your actions without defending them. Making decisions even when you're unsure. And this is not like an ego of like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I'm just going to make a decision and fucking wing it and force everyone into my thing and just like this posturing bravado. It's leading without being afraid to get it wrong. and then still navigating that. Like I definitely used to, when I first started this journey, I'd make a decision or pick a direction, and then something would go wrong. And I would find something to blame. Why do I bother? Like, fuck this, fuck that. And you just get frustrated over it. The next trait is staying present, even when there's that pivot required, even when those emotions rise. And then being able to lead those conversations, even the hard ones. Like coming back to the points of conflict that never got fully resolved so that nothing gets swept under the rug. Like think of how much stuff that just gets left because it's uncomfortable to come back to. It gets swept under the rug. And then that argument, that point comes back up next time you guys argue. Or maybe both of you are too polite to ever say anything. And then eventually what? You've got nothing to talk about. Like you play that out over a long enough time horizon and okay, cool. Can't talk about that subject because they got offended. Can't talk about this because he took it personally. Can't talk about this because of that. That's a touchy subject. You know, we don't know how to argue. We disagree on this thing. And then what? You can talk about the weather. How was your day? What do you want to do this weekend? Okay, you know, the kids have got this at 7, so we've got to be here. And we're just left to managerial logistics. That sounds fucking worse than roommates to me. And so when we face the truth of how much power we actually do have in our growth and how much that plays on the relationship, we have an immense amount of power to change when we can face the truth. And so as a point of reflection here, if I stripped away all your intentions, all your explanations, how does your marriage actually experience you? How does she actually feel you as you show up? Not your intentions, not your explanations. Do you lead or do you defer? Do you ground the room or are you reactive? Do you decide or do you delay? Do you stay present or do you go quiet? Sit and reflect on those. And this is why most men don't actually change this, because the trying actually feels like progress. Yeah, I'm trying to be better. I read a book or I listened to a podcast. I'm trying to do this, right? And that's where they get their dopamine from. I'm trying. And maybe you go a little bit further. Now you've got a new level of awareness to these traits, right? With ChatGPT, I know a lot of guys that put their text conversations with their wife or their partner in, like, what do I say here? What's going on here? And they'll come out with all these labels of they're this type of attachment style, they're this type of disconnected, or this type of like all the different traits and labels. And so, sure, you've got some new words and vocabulary to describe your situation and your dynamic. And that insight maybe makes you feel more intelligent or makes you feel safer because you now know what's going on. But the reactions are still the same. The energy is still the same. And that identity level change, which is what's required, feels like a loss, feels scary because something has to die for you to actually change in real life, not just have more information. And so most men here are not stuck because they don't know what to do. There's more information than ever available. So it's not that they don't know what to do. They're stuck because becoming different threatens who they've been rewarded for being. People think that if I need to be more emotional or have this emotional capacity at home, is that going to make me weak at work? Is that going to make me soft? Is it going to make me vulnerable? Not at all. The goal, in my opinion, of personal growth, not just for men, women as well, everybody included, is to have range and know when to use it. Right? That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you evolved, essentially, is I can be calm and grounded when I need to be. I can be fucking aggressive and angry when I need to be. I can be direct when I need to be. I can be soft when I need to be and know when to use each one, right? If I'm direct and aggressive to my wife and my kids, how's that going to land? Is it going to make them feel safe? Fuck no. If I'm direct and aggressive to someone who threatens my family, is that going to make them feel safe? Fuck yeah. Is that a correct use of that trait? I would say yes. And so all of these emotions, all of these traits, it's not about, oh, if I'm this, it means I need to be less of that. Like we're on a scale for all of them, but it's about then having the context to know which one is appropriate in that moment. So the man that you are in business meetings negotiating deals is not going to be the same man, like the same traits, I should say, that is handling his wife's emotions or his kid's tantrum when he's at home. You can be both. You can have access to all of these. It's not this or that. And that's the real shift for most men. So if your business is stable, if your finances are sorted, if your life is functional, but your marriage still feels flat or misaligned, and you still feel like the success you have outside of the home isn't translating to your marriage and the man you are in the home, it's not about fixing the relationship. It's about expanding your capacity to lead yourself under this emotional pressure, to learning and training these new traits and to having that range that can only come from facing that truth, from that brutal, honest truth. Now, if you want to see exactly how you're showing up as a grounded man at home and how that's being received, and then a game plan on what you can do about that, shoot me a message on Instagram or shoot me an email. I've got a grounded man assessment, just 10 questions. It'll take you all of 30 to 45 seconds to answer those, and it will give you a reflection on where you're at, what you can do about it, and where to level up so that you can have that range and be that grounded man in your marriage that is self-led and can lead his household just like you are at work. So with that, you can measure a man by how much truth he is willing to face. And the highest level men aren't the ones who face the most pressure. They're the ones who stop running from themselves, from the man in the mirror. Don't be sorry. Be better. Bye.